$60,000. Gone. Evaporated into thin air. I stared at the banking application on my phone until my vision blurred. The account balance read 0. This was not a system glitch. This was not a bank error. This was the college fund I had been bleeding for over the past 5 years to secure my 4-year-old daughter's future. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook violently. I did not scream. I did not cry. A cold, dark silence washed over me, because I knew exactly who took it, and I knew exactly what I had to do. My name is Chloe. I am 32 years old. I work as a medical administrator. I raise a beautiful little girl named Lily, and until last Tuesday, I thought I was married to a decent man. His name is Marcus. When we first met, Marcus was charming, sociable, and completely obsessed with me, or so I thought. The dark truth is, Marcus was never obsessed with me. Marcus was obsessed with comfort, and the person who provided him the most comfort was his mother, Brenda. Brenda is the textbook definition of a toxic boy mom. She lives exactly 2 train stops away from our apartment. Conveniently, her house is right next to Marcus's office building. In the beginning, I thought it was nice that they were close. I thought we would have a supportive extended family. I was incredibly naive. Brenda did not want a daughter-in-law. She wanted an incubator for her grandchild and an unpaid maid for her son. Marcus started making a habit of stopping by his parents' house after work. He never texted me. He never called me. I would spend 2 hours cooking a healthy dinner after picking Lily up from daycare. I would wait. The food would get cold. Finally, Marcus would walk in at 9 at night, patting his stomach. He would look at the carefully prepared meal on the table and say his mother made roast beef and mashed potatoes, so he was already full. No apology, no guilt, just pure, unfiltered entitlement. When I tried to talk to him about basic respect, he rolled his eyes. He said I was overreacting. He said his mother just loved taking care of her baby boy. The psychological abuse did not start all at once. It crept into my home slowly, like a deadly poison. Year 1 of our marriage, our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. I wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. I spent 3 days preparing the menu. I bought a 20-pound turkey. I made homemade cranberry sauce. I baked 2 different pies entirely from scratch. Marcus invited his parents. They arrived 2 hours early. Brenda walked through my front door, wrinkled her nose in disgust, and loudly asked why my house smelled like burnt plastic. It did not. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted meat. I ignored the insult. I smiled politely. I served them expensive wine. Then I made my first catastrophic mistake. I left the kitchen to use the restroom for exactly 5 minutes. When I came back, Brenda was standing by the stove. She smiled at me, a cold, lifeless, terrifying smile. When we finally sat down to eat, Marcus took the first bite of the mashed potatoes. He gagged loudly. He spat the food into his cloth napkin. He asked me if I was trying to poison him. I took a bite. It was pure salt. It tasted like dead ocean water. Brenda had dumped an entire shaker of salt into my food while I was in the bathroom. I looked across the table at her. She sighed dramatically. She told Marcus she warned him about my terrible cooking skills. She said it was a massive tragedy to waste good groceries on a bad wife. I looked at Marcus. I told him what she did. I told him she sabotaged the meal on purpose. Marcus slammed his fist on the dining table. He yelled at me in front of his parents. He said his mother was a saint and I was insane for accusing her. He ordered a pizza for himself and his parents. I spent my first Thanksgiving locked in the master bedroom, crying until my throat bled. Year 3, the day my daughter Lily was born. I was in brutal labor for 36 hours. It was the worst physical pain of my entire life. Every single bone in my body felt like it was breaking apart. I needed my husband. I needed him to hold my hand and tell me everything would be okay. Marcus sat in the dark corner of the delivery room, aggressively scrolling through his phone. He complained about the uncomfortable hospital chair. He complained about the bad cellular reception. He did not look at me once. Then, the heavy wooden door flew open. Brenda marched in. She was not invited. She wore a bright white summer dress, looking like she was attending a wealthy country club lunch. She did not ask how I was doing. She did not even look at the heart monitors. She looked straight at Marcus and loudly complained that the waiting room coffee was absolute garbage. She said she had a terrible headache and needed a real drink. Suddenly, the doctor rushed in. He told me it was time to push. My heart rate skyrocketed. The nurses surrounded my bed. I reached out for Marcus. I screamed his name through the pain. "Do you know what my husband did?" He stood up. He grabbed his heavy winter coat. He looked at me, sweating and screaming in pure agony, and calmly said he would be right back. He said his mother needed a proper latte from the expensive cafe across the street. He walked out. He left me entirely alone in the delivery room to buy his mother a $5 coffee. I pushed my beautiful daughter into this cold world completely alone. When Marcus finally returned 45 minutes later, Brenda was already holding my baby before I even got the chance to hold her myself. Year 4. The psychological warfare escalated. Brenda realized I was pulling away. She realized I was building a defensive wall around my daughter and myself. So, she changed her evil tactics. She started making me doubt my own sanity. She started using her spare key while I was away at work. She would not steal anything valuable. She would just move things, small, important things. I would leave my car keys on the kitchen counter. I would come home, and they would be hidden deep under the living room sofa. I would leave my favorite coffee mug in the top cabinet. I would find it pushed to the very back of the bottom drawer. Important medical mail would vanish from the dining table and magically reappear in the trash can 3 days later. I started missing important appointments. I was late for work. I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. I thought I had early onset memory loss. I cried to Marcus in the middle of the night. I told him I was terrified. I told him something was fundamentally wrong with my brain. Marcus held me. He stroked my hair. He used his softest, kindest voice. He told me I was just severely stressed. He told me my part-time job was too much for my fragile mental state. He said I was hysterical and needed to calm down. Then, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, I came home early from work because Lily had a sudden fever. I walked quietly into the apartment to avoid waking her up. I saw Brenda standing in the dark hallway. I froze. I watched her take my leather wallet out of my work purse. I watched her carefully hide it inside a decorative ceramic vase near the front door. My blood ran completely cold. The horrible realization hit me like a massive freight train. I was not crazy. I was not losing my memory. I was being actively hunted in my own home. I confronted her immediately. I demanded her copy of the house key. Brenda did not apologize. She laughed, a sharp, evil laugh. She tossed the metal key on the wooden floor. She looked at me with pure venom in her eyes. She said Marcus would never believe me. She said I was just a crazy, jealous woman, and she was the only woman Marcus would ever truly love. She was right about one specific thing. Marcus did not believe me. When he came home, he called me a paranoid liar. He said his mother was just trying to clean the house. That was the exact day my love for him died completely. That was the day I stopped being a helpless victim. That was the day I started waiting quietly for them to make a fatal mistake. And then came year 5. The $60,000 mistake. Tuesday morning. The day I checked the joint savings account. The day I saw the zero balance. I waited in the bedroom for Marcus to come out of the shower. He walked in, drying his wet hair with a towel, humming a cheerful pop song. I held up my glowing phone screen. I asked him where our daughter's college money went. He did not even flinch. He tossed his wet towel on the clean bed and looked at me like I was an annoying child asking a stupid question. He nonchalantly said his mother needed financial help. He said she needed fast cash for urgent home renovations. I felt a loud ringing in my ears. I asked him how he could steal our own daughter's future. We sacrificed for 5 long years to build that financial safety net. Marcus scoffed loudly. He looked down at me with pure, unfiltered disgust. He said Lily did not need the money right now because she was only 4 years old. He said we could just save it up again later. Then he crossed his arms and delivered the final devastating blow. He said it was his money anyway. He told me my part-time salary was a complete joke. He called me a useless dependent. He said my hard work and financial contributions to our household meant absolutely nothing to him. I stood there, looking at the man I married. He was not a husband. He was a selfish parasite. He was a pathetic coward who stole from his own innocent child to buy his mother's toxic affection. He smirked proudly, thinking he had won the argument. He told me if I did not like his decision, I could pack my bags and leave. He explicitly said he was ready for a divorce any time, knowing full well I could not afford an expensive lawyer on my part-time income. He turned his back on me and walked out of the room. He thought I would break down. He thought I would cry myself to sleep. He thought I was permanently trapped. He forgot one crucial detail. My mother was a brilliant, pragmatic woman. Before she passed away, she taught me one golden rule about life. When it comes to large sums of money, you never trust love. You trust paper. You document every single penny. And you always keep a loaded gun in the form of a legally binding contract. I did not cry. I walked slowly to my home office. I unlocked the heavy bottom drawer of my metal filing cabinet. I reached inside and pulled out a thick blue folder. Inside that folder was a piece of paper Marcus signed exactly 5 years ago. A piece of paper he completely forgot about. It was time to destroy him. Friday evening, 3 days after I discovered the missing money. Earlier that week, my father-in-law sent me a brief text message. He mentioned Marcus was coming over to their house for a special sushi dinner. Marcus, of course, never told me a single word about it. He thought he was cleverly sneaking out. He thought I was sitting alone in our apartment, crying over the empty bank account and my ruined life. He was absolutely wrong. I timed my arrival perfectly. I walked up to Brenda's house just as the sun went down. I could hear them laughing loudly inside. I pushed the heavy wooden front door open. The laughter stopped instantly. The silence in the room was deafening. Brenda glared at me from the head of the dining table. She crossed her arms tightly across her chest. She told me I was not invited to her home. Marcus sneered at me while holding his chopsticks. He said I did not deserve expensive sushi on a pathetic part-time salary. He ordered me to turn around and go home immediately. I did not blink. I did not raise my voice. I walked straight into the dining room. I looked dead into my husband's eyes. I told him I was not there to eat dinner. I was there to hand him a divorce. Marcus laughed out loud. A cruel, mocking laugh. He asked how a part-time worker could possibly afford to raise a child all alone. Brenda smirked in the background. She proudly announced that she was taking full custody of Lily. She looked at my father-in-law and called me an unfit, unstable mother. I smiled. It was a cold, highly practiced smile. I watched Brenda's smirk slowly fade away. I looked directly at Marcus. I calmly told him I had already called my old boss. Starting Monday morning, I was officially back to my full-time position in medical administration. I told them my parents were already moving my belongings into their large house. My parents, who actually love their granddaughter and do not treat her like a heavy burden. Then I opened my black leather bag. I pulled out the blue folder. I slid the single piece of paper across the smooth wooden dining table. It was the contract, signed and dated. I watched Marcus pick it up. I watched his eyes scan the words. The contract stated clearly that if the college fund was ever touched for non-educational purposes, it would automatically trigger an immediate at-fault divorce. It stated Marcus would forfeit all child custody rights without a fight. And most importantly, it stated a severe financial penalty. If he broke the agreement, he would have to pay back double the amount stolen. I watched the color completely drain from his arrogant face. $120,000. That was his legal penalty, plus monthly child support, plus expensive alimony. Marcus panicked. His hands started shaking violently. He dropped the paper on the floor. He turned to his mother with wide, terrified eyes. He begged Brenda to give the money back immediately. He said they could cancel the home renovations. He said he needed the $60,000 right this exact second, or his entire life was over. Brenda turned pale white. She looked down at the floor. She could not make eye contact with anyone. Her voice was barely a whisper. She said the money was gone. Marcus froze like a statue. He asked her what she meant. Brenda started crying uncontrollably. She confessed the dark truth. There were no home renovations. The house did not need repairs. She used our daughter's college fund to buy expensive designer handbags, luxury shoes, and high-end clothes. She blew $60,000 in a single week simply because she could not resist shopping. My father-in-law slammed his hands on the table. He stood up, absolutely disgusted. He looked at his wife and his son as if they were complete strangers. He told them they were monsters. I stood there and watched their entire world collapse. They were the worst kind of people. And now, they were finally going to pay for it. The divorce was finalized exactly 6 months later. The family court judge saw the binding contract. The judge saw the bank statements. The judge saw all the documented evidence of Brenda's psychological abuse. I was granted full, undisputed custody of Lily. Marcus was drowning in massive debt. To pay me the $120,000, Brenda was forced to pawn all her brand new designer bags at a massive loss. It was nowhere near enough. They had to officially cash out both of their life insurance policies. My father-in-law was so horrified by their selfish actions that he filed for a divorce of his own. He legally severed all ties with Brenda. He refused to give Marcus a single penny. The extreme stress destroyed Marcus. He messed up a major corporate project at his office. He was severely demoted. His salary was slashed in half. He could no longer afford his apartment rent. He was legally forced to move into a tiny, run-down, one-bedroom studio apartment. And because Brenda had no husband and no savings left, she had to move into that tiny apartment with him. They are completely broke now. The golden child and the toxic mother, trapped together forever in a tiny room. Neighbors say they spend every single day screaming at each other, viciously blaming each other for their ruined lives. Yesterday afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered it. It was Marcus. He sounded incredibly pathetic. He told me how hard his daily life was. He complained about his tiny apartment. He complained about his mother constantly yelling at him. He begged for my sympathy. He asked if I had even a single word of comfort for the father of my child. I listened to him cry. I took a deep, refreshing breath. I told him I had plenty of my own complaints. I told him to add his tears to my monthly bill, and maybe I would care. Then I hung up the phone. I permanently blocked his number. I walked into the living room and looked at my beautiful daughter playing happily in our new, peaceful home. My late mother was absolutely right. Good manners and trust are crucial in a family, but a legally binding contract? That is absolutely priceless.